The long wait is finally over. Celtics fans, basketball fans, NBA diehards, we made it. Preseason basketball is officially here, and the Boston Celtics are set to take the floor tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. And while Ja Morant won't be suiting up for Memphis, that doesn't matter much right now. What matters is that we're no longer stuck dissecting every micro-quote from practice, every vague social media post, every breath a player takes during training camp. Now, we finally get to analyze what really matters, actual basketball. This preseason is more than just a warm-up. It's our first real look at how this new version of the Celtics might operate on the court. And there's plenty to look forward to. For starters, all eyes are going to be on Anthony Simons. He's been making noise in camp, especially with comments about improving defensively. That's raised some eyebrows, including mine, because defense is about effort. It's not a new concept. It's not something you suddenly get excited to try, just because you're in a contract year. And let's not forget, if he knew effort was the key, why wasn't he trying before? That said, I'm genuinely curious to see how that talk translates in a game action. The Celtics don't need him to turn into a defensive stopper overnight. No one's expecting to see Simons crack the all-defensive teams. But if he can show just a bit more hustle, make fewer mistakes, stay in front of his man, and stop being such a defensive liability, that changes things. That elevates his ceiling. Because on offense, we already know what he brings to the table: shooting, playmaking, creativity. But this year, if he becomes even a neutral presence on defense, suddenly his overall value skyrockets. Not just for Boston, but across the entire league. Here's where it gets interesting. Simons is in a bit of a no-win scenario when it comes to his long-term future with the Celtics. If he thrives this season, really thrives, that means he's about to get paid. Whether by Boston or someone else, that payday is coming if he performs at a high level on both ends of the floor. But if he doesn't fully break out, then maybe he sticks around in Boston on a more reasonable deal. It's the classic catch-22. If you're a Simons fan and you want him in green for the long haul, the path to that happening might actually be through him not taking a leap. But then again, if he does become that complete player, who wouldn't want to keep him around? Tonight, we're likely going to see the starters for about 15 to 18 minutes, unless Joe Mazzulla decides to go full maniac mode. Either way, we'll get our first real look at whether all that this is a track meet, not basketball, camp energy can hold up in live game action. Can the Celtics maintain that pace with the ball tipped and the lights on? Can Simons walk the walk, not just talk the talk? But Simons isn't the only storyline heading into the preseason. The big man rotation might be even more intriguing. Boston has a handful of options, but the spotlight is on Nemias Queta, the Portuguese prince. Sounds like he'll get the first opportunity to prove himself as a reliable frontcourt piece. His Eurobasket showing was promising, going up against legit NBA-caliber talent like Nikola Jokic and Kristaps Porzingis. But Eurobasket is not the NBA. The system is different. The spacing is different. The role he played there isn't the same one he'll have here. So what do we need to see from Queta? It's simple. Can he understand the defensive concepts? Can he rotate correctly? Can he keep up with the game mentally and physically at NBA speed? Or are we going to see Mazzulla tearing his hair out on the sidelines when defensive breakdowns start piling up? That's the test. And if Queta struggles, who's next? Chris Boucher might get a look at the small ball five, but how sustainable is that? Maybe in short bursts, sure. But long-term? That's risky. Still, the Celtics are in dire need of shooting from their front court, and Boucher can space the floor. So don't be shocked if he gets real minutes there. And then, there's the four spot. Who's getting that starting nod next to the big? Last night on the podcast, people were split. Some want Howard to start. Others are pushing for Boucher. Defensively, there are concerns either way. And to be honest, regardless of who starts, defense in that 4-5 combo is going to be something to monitor all season long. After Boucher and Queta, who's waiting in the wings? Is it Xavier Tillman? Luka Garza? There's been some hype around Tillman, especially with him claiming he feels healthier this season. But listen closely to what he's saying. The swelling in his knee has gone down, not that it's gone. That's a key difference. If he's not 100%, that depth chart could be shifting week to week. Beyond the rotation questions, there's a youth battle that's heating up too. Jordan Walsh has been talking a big game, calling himself a sniper from three. Now it's time to prove it. If Walsh can show he's developed that jumper, it opens up a ton of options for this roster. And maybe that knocks Baylor Shyman down a peg. Shyman just turned 25. He's solid, sure, but in NBA terms, you kind of are who you are by then. Meanwhile, Walsh is only 21. First legal beer back in March. The ceiling's still wide open for him, and this preseason is his chance to show that. And let's not forget about Hugo Gonzalez. He might not be at the top of anyone's depth chart, but he's in the mix. Between Gonzalez, Walsh, and Shyman, someone is going to seize that opportunity, and the preseason is where it starts. What's wild is that in the middle of all this Celtics excitement, I actually had the date wrong. Thought the game was tonight, but turns out it's tomorrow night at 8. It's all good, though. Just shows how hyped we are to finally have basketball back. After Memphis, the Celtics head north to face Toronto on Friday, and then return home on Sunday to host the Cavaliers. By next week, we'll have real data, real rotations, and a much better sense of what this team looks like on the court. Now, zooming out a bit, there's more drama unfolding around the league. One of the biggest storylines right now involves none other than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Remember all the offseason talk? Is he happy in Milwaukee? Will he force a trade? Well, turns out it wasn't all smoke. Reports now say that the New York Knicks were the only team Giannis was seriously interested in besides the Bucks. And more than that, those two teams spent a big chunk of the summer in trade talks. Think about what that means. You don't enter serious trade discussions for a player like Giannis without putting key pieces on the table. That probably means two of the following three guys were involved in those talks: Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby. Not all three, but at least two. The Knicks would have had to give up a lot, and maybe, just maybe, they ran out of assets. They already shipped off a mountain of picks for Bridges, so it's possible Milwaukee just wasn't satisfied with what was left. The timing of this story dropping is fascinating too. Right before the season starts, this kind of report can shake locker room chemistry. Even if the deal didn't happen, players now know their names were floating in trade talks. That creates tension, especially with someone like Karl-Anthony Towns, who's always worn his emotions on his sleeve. You've got Josh Hart moving to the bench, players trying to carve out roles, and now this Giannis report looming over the team. If things get off to a rocky start in New York, don't be surprised if those trade rumors start heating up again. And if we're being real, that Knicks situation is far from settled. Chemistry can be a fragile thing in the NBA, and when you start a season with the shadow of a near-blockbuster trade looming over your roster, it doesn't take much to throw things off course. These guys are professionals, sure, but they're also human. You're telling me Karl-Anthony Towns is walking into that locker room feeling 100% locked in, knowing that front office suits were trying to ship him out just weeks ago? That Josh Hart is content sliding into a bench role after proving himself as a starter last season? You can bet these storylines are going to linger if the Knicks stumble out of the gate. And as much as winning does tend to cover up tension, it only takes a losing streak or two for the cracks to show again. Meanwhile, over in Milwaukee, things aren't exactly peaceful either. Doc Rivers already made headlines with his comments about Kevin Porter Jr. being the starting point guard no matter how he plays. That's a bold statement, and maybe not the good kind. It might sound like a vote of confidence, but what it really does is put pressure on the entire bench unit and kills any sense of healthy competition. When you tell the world, before a single preseason game is played, that a guy has locked down a starting job regardless of performance, you're basically throwing a cold bucket of water on the rest of the roster. Add that to the pressure Giannis is already under, from media, from fans, maybe even from himself, and Milwaukee starts to feel a bit shaky. And you know what? If the Bucks don't come out swinging early this season, that pressure cooker is going to boil over. What happens if they lose 5 of their first 7? What if Giannis isn't clicking with the supporting cast? What if the vibes are just off? There's a world where he starts asking those questions again, quietly at first, maybe behind the scenes, but the seeds have already been planted. I stayed this offseason. I played nice. But now it's time to go. That's how these things build. Don't get it twisted, Giannis still has a ton of weight in the league. If he signals that he's available, it'll trigger a feeding frenzy across the NBA. Houston becomes a real possibility. They've got the assets, the draft picks, the young core, and the ability to make contracts work. Especially now, with Fred VanVleet's massive deal on the books and other pieces like Tari Eason and Reed Shepherd showing promise. If Milwaukee looks vulnerable, the Sharks are going to start circling. And whether it happens mid-season or next summer, Giannis drama isn't going away. It's just a matter of when the next wave hits. So as a Celtics fan, or just someone tracking the top of the Eastern Conference, this matters. Boston may not be in the mix for a guy like Giannis, but the turmoil in Milwaukee and the unease in New York absolutely impact how this season plays out. If either of those teams underperforms, it could shift the power dynamic in the East. And for a Celtics squad that's probably going to land somewhere between the 6th and 8th seed, any turbulence at the top is a chance to climb. Now, speaking of turbulence, let's talk Memphis. The Grizzlies just can't catch a break. Ja Morant is already sidelined with an ankle injury before the season even starts. He's listed as week to week, and that's never a great sign for a guy who's had a share of injury issues already. Then you've got Zach Edey expected to miss significant time, and Brandon Clark also ruled out for a large portion of the year. This team is limping into the season, and not just physically. It's year 3 of what feels like a never-ending cycle of bad luck and blown opportunities for Memphis. And it's starting to feel like they just can't get out of their own way. This matters for the Celtics too, even if it's not a direct conference rivalry. Every team you face during the season, especially in those early months, presents a different kind of test. Memphis, when healthy, is physical, fast, and can throw punches with the best of them. But this version, with Ja out, depth compromised, and morale already dipping, it changes the whole equation. These are the kinds of matchups that can either build confidence or lull you into complacency. So how the Celtics handle a wounded team like the Grizzlies says a lot about their mental sharpness and approach. And by the way, can we talk about Luke Kornet for a second? Shout out to him for putting his body on the line, even if it meant getting absolutely posterized by Victor Wembanyama in that scrimmage. Look, that clip is going to live on social media for a while, and it's not exactly going on Kornet's career highlight reel. But you know what? He stepped up. He challenged a guy who's already drawing comparisons to legends before even playing a full NBA game. That takes guts. He might not be flashy, but Kornet's the type of guy every team needs. Someone who shows up, does the dirty work, and never ducks the smoke. Let's pivot back for a second, because there's one more piece of league-wide drama we need to touch on. The corny king himself, LeBron James, is back with what's being called the Decision 2. Now, for those of you too young to remember, the original decision was that televised moment back in 2010 when LeBron announced he was leaving Cleveland for Miami. It was dramatic, it was awkward, it was iconic in all the wrong ways. And now, he's doing it again. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Boston is buzzing this week with whispers that could reshape the Celtics bench almost overnight. Sources close to the organization hint at a blockbuster move involving Romeo HAUSER and a package of draft picks, a deal that insiders claim could be finalized as early as this week. While nothing has been officially confirmed, the implications are already sending waves through NBA circles. HAUSER, the young swingman with flashes of scoring and defensive promise, has long been on the Celtics' radar as a potential rotation cornerstone. Yet, with the team juggling cap space and future flexibility, the idea of leveraging him in a trade to secure additional draft capital has reportedly gained traction in recent days. League insiders suggest that the Celtics are exploring ways to boost their bench depth while keeping an eye on long-term rebuilding options, a strategy that makes a HAUSER for picks scenario tantalizingly plausible. The chatter in Boston's locker room has been relentless. Analysts speculate that the deal could bring the Celtics multiple second-round picks or even a first-rounder, depending on negotiations and protections. If executed, this would mark a significant pivot in the team's strategy, signaling a shift from developing HAUSER internally to betting on the draft and future prospects. Fans are divided. Some see the move as a smart, forward-thinking maneuver, while others worry about losing a promising talent who could blossom into a key rotation piece. Social media has already exploded with reactions ranging from excitement to skepticism. If HAUSER goes, the bench changes entirely, one popular Celtics fan account tweeted, reflecting the buzz that has captured the city. Commentators are speculating about who might fill the void, with names from veteran free agents to emerging G League stars being tossed around. Meanwhile, the Celtics front office remains tight-lipped, fueling the rumor mill even further. While the deal is still in its infancy and many variables remain, insiders emphasize that momentum is building. By the end of the week, Boston could wake up to a very different bench configuration, one that leans more on draft picks and future planning than immediate depth. For now, Celtics fans can only watch closely as the whispers grow louder and the NBA rumor mill works its magic. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.